Broadcasting from Detroit's Cass Corridor, it's the Metro on WDET. I'm Tia Graham. And this hour, we'll highlight baseball from multiple different angles, starting with Roberto Clemente, who was a baseball icon. Over his 18-year career, he won 2 World Series, 12 Golden Gloves, 4 batting titles, and is one of only 33 players in baseball history to collect 3,000 hits in his career. Clemente's resume jumps off the page. But what Clemente was able to do on the field may not even be his greatest contribution. His reputation as a humanitarian cannot be understated. Tragically, Clemente's need to help others unfortunately led to his death in December of 1972. On a trip to escort aid to Nicaragua after the country experienced an earthquake, his plane crashed and he was never seen again. Every year, the MLB gives the Roberto Clemente Award to the player who demonstrates exceptional work off the field. And in an effort to further enshrine Clemente's legacy, a new stage play tells his story. Roberto Clemente, A Diamond Within, is an original play written by Candido Tirado. It runs from June 5th through June 28th in the Marlene Bowl Theater at the Bowl Family YMCA. I'm joined by the producing artistic director of Plowshares Theater Company, Gary Anderson. Gary, welcome to the Metro.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Of course. And we should also note that Plowshares Theater Company is a supporter of WDET.
Yes.
Now, Gary, how did you come to bring this play to Detroit in the first place?
Well, it actually began as an initiative that I was looking to develop, and this happened during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. I was trying to find ways in which we could create programming that could do a greater job of making connections. I'm a little bit of a nerd when it comes to the census, and I've been noticing since I graduated from high school in 1980 that there was, at least in the reporting on the changes in demographics in the country, there was a little bit of competition between blacks and Latinos in regards to numbers. And that was used to create friction and dissension between the communities. But when I watched the fact that many Latino women were the first victims of COVID, and largely because they were in positions at hospitals where they were most vulnerable. They were either on the work staff or supporting nursing, or they were janitorial service, and they were dying in larger numbers than their portion of the community you would assume. I started thinking about the way in which we define what we call essential workers and how we look at people in many cases, people of color, in most cases, women, in positions in regards to how they are the most vulnerable in our community. And so how do I get to a baseball play about Roberto Clemente? The idea was to start looking at the history. About 11 to 12 million Africans were kidnapped out of this continent of Africa. Only about 300 to 500,000 came to continental United States before many slave owners went to procreation as opposed to buying the enslaved. So that meant that the rest 11 million people were being populated through the Caribbean, Central and South America. And when you look at the plays produced by Black theater, those are usually telling stories of blacks in the North or blacks in the South. And they never break the barrier of the continental United States. And yet there are Afro-Latinos in the Dominican Republic, in Puerto Rico, in Cuba, in the Caribbean, in Venezuela, Brazil, you name it. And those are all Black stories. And so the idea was, with Black theater Latin roots, to begin to cultivate stories about plays that helped us engage conversations about Blacks and Latin community, as well as the unique community of Afro-Latinos, people who had a dual identity, who were being, in some cases, being discriminated against, regardless of where they found themselves on the planet.
Because honestly, I'm listening to you talk right now, and we can literally just talk about just that. You know what I mean? Just that for the whole entire hour. But I want to make sure that we do talk about Roberto Clemente himself.
Yes.
And of course, your reasoning for bringing these type of conversations to the stage is important to expand on the idea of the Afro experience, whether you're Afro-Latino, whether you are from the continental United States of America, and so on and so forth. So at what point in Roberto Clemente's life does this play take place?
This actually takes place in 1970 in the game where he got his 3,000th hit. You were talking about he's one of 33. He was number 11.
Oh,
right. So the play is him at bat throughout the entire game. And through the course of his experience of participating in this game, he does flashbacks. He starts thinking about all these things that led to him to becoming the athlete he is, the person he is. And so we get to meet his parents. We get to meet some of his mentors. We get to see him at early stages in his career and some of the challenges. The reason why we chose Clemente, largely because Candido, the player at Candido Torado, Roberto was a hero of his when he grew up, but he was also the perfect historic individual to actually focus this first story on. He was one of the few Latin players that identified as both a African as well as a Latin human being.
It was rare at that time.
Exactly. 1955, when he joined the Pittsburgh Pirates, he was one of the most vocal in regards to recognizing the heritage of his life. He was engaged in civil rights, not just in general, but also in the game. He fought for the rights of Latin and Black players. He did not discriminate. He had many struggles that to this day we see people of Latin ancestry struggling with in regards to being told to go back to their country. Let's put something right now. Woodrow Wilson made every Puerto Rican a U.S. citizen prior to entering World War I. And he did that because he was trying to increase the number of male bodies he could throw into an army. All right. So for more than a century, Puerto Ricans have been United States citizens. So let's just get that straight.
I recently had the opportunity to watch a little bit. I watched a documentary on Roberto Clemente and just learn and listening to what you're saying right now. And the thing that struck me was, growing up in the United States of America, we understand what racism looks like in this country. And for him coming from Puerto Rico and then going to the South for spring training camp, his first year with the Pittsburgh Pirates, he experienced racism in a way that he had never experienced it. Jim Crow, segregation. He saw things that he didn't understand at all. And then as well, he had to break through the language barrier because he also didn't speak fluent English at the time.
Well, because Puerto Rico was under the control of the U.S. government, they had to learn English the first 7 years of their schooling in Puerto Rico. Now, he wasn't a perfect English speaker, but he could communicate in the language. So let's just
let's just make sure that
let's give him his credits, right? Okay. But you're right. The thing is that he was challenged in regards to how and was discriminated against. One of the things that we depict in the play is a real event. So at that time, when baseball teams went into the South, either during spring training or when they were touring to play games, the white players and the management would get off the bus, go to a restaurant, sit down and have a hot meal at a table, get waited on. The Black and Latin players had to stay on the bus in many communities down there and wait for the white players to bring them back cold sandwiches. Clemente doesn't understand why they allow that to happen. And so he encourages the players, the Black and Latin players, to go on a hunger strike. Well, if you're doing a two-header the next day and you haven't eaten the day before, you're impairing your ability to perform well. And that's going to have an impact on your track record as a team. And management figured they had to do something about that. They wanted to quench the rebellion, but what they ended up doing, because they had a general manager named Joe Brown who was progressive for the time, he was forced to make a decision, and the decision he made was he bought them a station wagon so they had a way to go to restaurants that would serve them. And that was something that caused a lot of friction in Major League Baseball because it looked like he was giving in to these uppity black and brown players. But it was a tremendous act of courage and just treating people with human dignity, right?
You're listening to The Metro on 1019 WDET. I'm Tia Graham. We're talking about baseball legend Roberto Clemente and a new play about his life on and off the field. It opens this week at YMCA downtown. My guest is Gary Anderson, who is the producing artistic director of Plowshares Theater Company, who is putting this production on. Now, Gary, for a long time, it was loosely understood that the kinds of stories that are told, whether it's a movie, play, or book, rests on the audience that's willing to consume it.
Right.
That you can only make a story if there is an audience for it. As a result, Latino, Black, and many other stories of color had to prove their story's worth over and over again. Is that still something that you're fighting today?
That is true. I want to make one correction, however. We had a cast member who became ill over the weekend and had to pull out of the show.
Oh, no.
And so we've found a replacement for him. But that means that we're pushing the opening back till the 12th of June as opposed to this week. So the performances that were scheduled for this weekend have been canceled. And we are going to open up the show next week.
June 12th.
June 12th on Friday, yes. Sorry about not catching that earlier.
Oh, no issues at all. But I just, going back to the question there, is it still difficult for you to produce certain plays or certain scenes for an audience that may not be there? Are you still in that?
I have lived my entire life defying the fact that people assume the audience isn't there. I think that, so here's the thing. If we are going to tell another version of Cinderella or another version of, God forbid, the Three Musketeers, nobody ever asked, is there an audience for that, right? In my lifetime, I'm a comic book fan. I grew up reading comic books as a kid. In my lifetime, I can't tell you how many Batman movies or TV shows have existed. We have had 3 different series of Spider-Man. Nobody asked, do we want another one? So I'm just saying.
Yes.
So let's dispel this notion that we go out and seek permission about the stories that we're going to tell, because we don't. Mm-hmm. What we do is, the arts, and theater specifically, investigates humanity. The playwright and a group of actors and a director come together to display their comprehension of what it is to be human and presents that in front of an audience. And if that resonates with you and others, you're welcome and compelled to want to experience that and share your experience with others to encourage them to also see that. We have a right to tell our story. Nobody asks anybody about what stories we can choose to do. What happens is we do have gatekeepers in regards to the venues that exist that want to decide on what they can do. And if that's fine, if that's what you want to support. I had a peer once who said that one of her patrons came up to her and said, do the plays always have to hurt? Right?
Yeah.
And my understanding is that life sometimes isn't happy, right? And sometimes the knowledge, the wisdom that is on the other side comes through a moment of pain. And maybe what you find that hurts you when you experience it is something about the human condition that you've been ignoring.
Yeah.
Because the victims or the people who are suffering from it don't necessarily look like you.
Yeah.
And my job as a Black artist is to tell my story in a way that is authentic to my people, but that hopefully resonates with you.
Gary, before I let you go and we get out of here, what's the important lesson to be learned from Clemente's story, especially when folks go out June 12th to see it?
The thing that we need people to walk away with is understanding that the mosaic of stories that exist really help define the fabric of who and what we are as a country. Right now, and I've been telling people this all year long, this is the most patriotic play I could actually tell, because Clemente's entire life is about developing an experience and presenting his life in attempting to achieve those inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? And he does it in a way that is easily identifiable. And the challenges that he confronts throughout his career are the challenges that many people of color experience every day, because those inalienable rights were not provided to everybody.
Gary Anderson is the producing artistic director of Plowshares Theater Company. June 12th, Roberto Clemente, A Diamond Within, opens at the YMCA in downtown Detroit and runs through June 28th. Tickets for the show can be found at plowsharestheater.org. That is plowsharestheater.org. Gary, I wish we had more time. I could talk to you all hour. Thank you so much for joining us on the Metro.
Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Coming up, how the players in the Negro Leagues left legacies that resonated beyond baseball. You all stay right there. We'll be right back. This is The Metro.